All right. Welcome to our TMN Tuesday October event. This month, our TMN Tuesday monthly webinar is going to focus on our chapter project fair entries. We have 4 fantastic chapters who have entered into our project fair, and we're going to have an opportunity for each of those chapters to present their project, share a little bit about the experience to getting their project to where it is, and what their hopes and plans are for the future for that project. Before we get started with our main content of today's presentation, we have our regular TMN Tuesday introduction here with our tech check for everybody who's online, and then a little bit about our TMN Tuesday event and the plans for it. So if you are a brand new attendee to our TMN Tuesday, where have you been? We've been doing this for a year and a half now, but we're so excited to keep this series going. As an attendee, it is a planned thing that you cannot unmute and cannot share your video. We have hundreds of attendees typically on these types of events, and we want to make sure that we are giving all of our focus to our project speakers, our presenters today. And that's going to go for our fellow speakers. So as you are a fellow speaker for other chapters who are sharing their projects, please mute yourself, turn your video off to give that chapter the highlight that they deserve during their presentation time. So if we've gotten to this point and you're seeing that I've moved slides and I'm talking, I'm using my hands, and you still can't hear me as a attendee on our TMN Tuesday event, you'll need to check your audio connections. Of course, you can't hear me telling you that, but you can hopefully read this screen and see that you need to check your audio and video settings, make sure that your speakers are plugged in, volume's up, the correct speaker is selected, and so on and so on. And I'm going to not take any more time with that one. We are going to use chat today as our main function for asking questions. We have a ton of speakers today that are going to be helping to answer questions in chat, answer your questions verbally as well. So that chat room is going to be really important for us as they are presenting, to be able to ask those questions and provide that interaction with these chapters, to give them that feedback on their hard work and their content. So please make sure as you're chatting, select to everyone on the top of that chat box so that we are all interacting with each other at the same time. Use full and clear sentences, try your best at spelling, I know it's hard, and use clear grammar so that we can understand your question as we're trying to answer that. Last but not least, our ever faithful WebEx Help Center has a call 1866 number and a website with FAQs to be able to answer any remaining questions that you have about WebEx. All right, just a few more and then I'm going to hand it off to Michelle to get us into the content. But as mentioned, this is part of our TMN Tuesday series, which is our monthly webinar series. We hosted all last year and all this year with monthly on the second Tuesday of every month at noon. These presentations focus on different topics that are relevant to our Master Naturalists, relevant to our conservation community, and just some great discussions as well. So we've got 2 more left for 2022, November 8th and December 13th. So please make sure that you mark your calendar for those. Finally, closing out the tech on today to get ready for the content, just covering these bases again. Attendees are not able to unmute or share their video, and that is done on purpose. All interaction with attendees and panelists should be done through your chat room, so please make sure you're asking your questions in clear sentences, professional and respectful manner, of course, as well, so that we can answer them appropriately. This session is going to actually run a little over an hour today, so as a Master Naturalist, you can earn advanced training hours for the content for today, and this session is being recorded and will be posted on our website by this afternoon, if not first thing tomorrow morning, and we still have more resources on how to do WebEx on our website if you are still having issues at this point. All right, and with that, Michelle, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you intro what we're doing today.
So as mentioned, today is our October TMN Tuesdays. event, an advanced training event, and today's focus is our chapter project fair. And we have this is a competition to have or be named the exemplary project of the Texas Master Naturalist program. This project fair has been a feature of our annual meeting for several years now. During the pandemic, we switched to a virtual presentation option because our meeting had gone virtual, completely virtual in 2020. And it was a great transition, and something that many of our chapters and our volunteers loved hearing about projects from other chapters, and this was a great way to get that information out there virtually. So we're continuing to do the project fair virtually this year, and probably will do so in this type of format going forward. As I mentioned, the project fair is a competition, and our chapters, these are projects that have been submitted by chapters that could be implemented, adapted and implemented in any chapter statewide. The presenters today will be competing for a project grant to continue efforts on the current project that they're presenting on, or to further new efforts, project efforts within their chapter. So we typically give awards between $350 to $800 as part of the project fair awards for this year. You see an example last year. The winner from last year was the Cradle of Texas chapter with their Bobcat Woods Loop Trail. And then at our annual meeting, we will present the results of this year's winners that we'll all be reviewing today. As a reminder, we're kind of ramping up to our annual meeting week right now. So this time next week, or pretty close to this time next week, we'll be in Houston for our Master Naturalist annual meeting, October 20th through the 23rd. And as I mentioned just previously, that the project fair award winners will be announced on Sunday during our award presentations that take place on Sunday. But if you aren't registered to attend the annual meeting in person, we still have virtual registrations open. So if you're interested, if you're a latecomer to attending the annual meeting and you still want to attend virtually, that is available. So virtual access is available now through October 23rd, which is the end of the meeting, at $125 for virtual access is the registration cost. So, and we'll drop the links in the chat if you're interested in still registering as a virtual attendee for the annual meeting. To give you an overview of today, our speaker schedule, we're obviously doing the program intro right now, and then we have presentations from our Sabine-Neches chapter, our Lost Pines chapter, the Heartwood chapter, and the North Texas chapter. The presentation, as we mentioned earlier, the whole entire event will be a little bit beyond an hour today. Obviously, we started at 11:45. Presentation itself starts at 11:55, and we will wrap up today at 1:15. We will stay on task today. Chapters have been tasked with giving a 15-minute presentation and having 5 minutes for questions afterwards. And we have a tight time schedule, so we will keep everything on time. So Mary Pearl and I will be the moderators of the session today and kind of keep all of our presentations on time.
Great. Well, with that, let's go ahead and transition to our first speaker. Make sure that they've got their tech running, and we'll give them the floor. So Michelle, if you will please transfer to Nancy with Sabine-Neches chapter.
Do I pull up the PowerPoint and then do share?
Yes, ma'am.
That's first. Oh,
hold on. No. The presenter rights are coming over.
Oh, what happened?
She's going to hand you the presenter rights so that you've got it.
You should be able to share now.
Okay, well, all I see, oh no,
It's
I
okay.
see my thing on the, okay,
You got plenty of time,
all right,
Nancy.
wait a second. So when I do this, what happens now? I have to pull up my PowerPoint, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, but now it
Tell me
went to
what
the
you're seeing.
last
We've got some
slide.
time.
Okay, it went to the last slide, so now I don't see my PowerPoint is not on here.
It's okay.
Oh,
Go to the
wait,
WebEx.
there it is, but it's on the very, oh, it's on the last page. So
It's okay.
now
Go to the three dots at the top
okay. And
and then
then
press from beginning.
from beginning. Oh, okay. Oh, wait. All right. So,
You can use those right there, and you are set and ready. And it is 11:55 on the dot, and you are
okay.
golden.
Except y'all are in the way of my slides, your faces.
Not for everybody else.
Okay. All right. So Beyond the Choir, Sabine-Neches chapter of the Texas Master Naturalist. Our public tradition has been a passive response to invitations from our partner organizations to come help them with events that they were having. We have an exhibit with information about the TMN, local service projects, and nature education. Usually, these are all done at outdoor parks and gardens, such as Shangri-La Botanical Gardens. We'd go to Earth Day Eco Fest. We also helped the Big Thicket Association with eco tours on the Ivory Bill pontoon boat. We were captains, deckhands, and docents for those trips. We assisted with science classes for school groups and led nature activities with the students on shore. Again, this is with the Big Thicket Association invitation. Village Creek State Park would invite us to come out, and we did classes for kids or scout groups or families. This was a birding class. And Searim State Park, we'd help with their kid fish contest. So it's not like we were just like slacking out here in the swamp. We were doing stuff. We noticed that our audience, that a vast majority were Caucasian families, and they had to make the effort to come out to what we were having. But everything was good, and we were satisfied with that until last year we attended the Texas Master Naturalist annual meeting, and we got a keynote speaker there was Dr. Drew Lanham, and he inspired us with his statement that when we all stay in our own lanes, like in the nature world, and expect people to come out to see us, well, we're essentially preaching to the choir because those people are already interested in nature. So we began to think, well, what could we do to reach beyond the choir and reach people that, for whatever reason, aren't into nature, aren't engaged with nature. Maybe they're just like the current culture is into video games and TikTok things, and so we then decided to assume the missionary position and take active leadership, targeting people who are not engaged with nature. Our hypothesis was that if we could plant the seed of nature um, inspiration, that would lead to nature appreciation, and that would then lead to nature conservation. So our steps were to form a committee, develop goals and budgets, and presented the objectives to our chapter members. We decided we would have kind of shotgun this whole thing with 5 different objectives. We would teach 1 nature class per month to underserved kids. We would staff TMN exhibits at 4 non-ecocentric events, give 4 presentations about TMN and conservation to random civic organizations, invite a minority leadership organization for a private eco tour on the Ivory Bill, and expand our social media presence. Our results was, well, all the members approved. And so we began with the YMCA, which is objective number 1. The YMCA was the organization that agreed to have us come out. We designed and presented fun learning activities for 4 classes in 4 different areas of Southeast Texas with the Y. Our advice when working with other organizations is to calculate the cost of the crafts first and bring extra supplies. Like when we were told there would be 45 kids and there were 90. Focus on elementary age students. Keep contacting organizations till someone says yes. Be flexible because some of these organizations, well, they're not real organized and they won't keep your schedule very well. Have fun because memory improves when events are engaging, and be creative. Kids love surprises, like people wearing armadillos on their head. Objective number 2 was new public events. So we started last December and we got a free vendor spot at the Very Merry Christmas Market. And this is where people are coming to buy candles for grandma for Christmas, right? So we learned a lot from this public event because they weren't here for nature. Advice for exhibits. You have to have attractive, engaging, eye-catching exhibits, free stuff for kids. Wearing a bee costume helps attract attention. Having games. This current picture is from the Texas Rice Festival, which we did a couple weekends ago. And we won first place there for education because I think it was, we were attracting that attention. And getting the kids engaged in playing this frog game and talking about conservation in the marsh. So then we thought, well, why not go for the largest event in Southeast Texas that draws the most diverse population? That's the South Texas State Fair, sponsored by the YMBL of Beaumont, and they are the organizers. So on this next slide, you'll see that was the beginning of us calling Champions for Nature event that we had at the state fair. And when this video plays, I'll explain to you the details that it took for us to get to this place. Oh, where'd it go? Okay. So Champions for Nature is a concept that we sold for free vendor space for a huge area of the exhibit hall at the South Texas State Fair. And we promised them that we would bring nature education and free activities for the kids. And then that way people could learn about free and cheap things to do in nature in Southeast Texas. And so they were willing to give us that spot, and we contacted these organizations, and you can see some of our organizations that came out. There were 16 contacts that we made, and that Bigfoot was made out of a recycling project. So we had, he was a big selfie draw, an eye catcher to get people to come into our section of the exhibit hall. So we had one of our chapter members was doing the media. We had another one that was helping do the layout because the game wardens brought an airboat. Well, you have to plan for how you're going to put all that in that space. We had contracts drawn up with those organizations, spelling out completely what we wanted done, as far as them not just sitting around with some brochures. They had to have some fun, interesting stuff to do. We had people to help set up and people to take down. We had brochure people to help make informative brochures. We were contacting organizations for free stuff, and we bought some free stuff for the give out to the kids. And we had to have the security system according to the YMBL. And so we were able to get the first weekend in April, both a Saturday and a Sunday, which happened to also be mobility challenged weekend day. So we were able to get a lot of people in wheelchairs, and it was fun to see that their eye level, they were still able to see the things that we had in nature for them. And so we had to have people clean up and take down, and there was a whole lot of details to that. We are currently in negotiations with them, the fair for next year, because the YMBL was really impressed. They thought, the people enjoyed what we did, and all the organizations that joined in with us, they also thought it was worth their time to come out. So we learned a lot from this event also, and took a huge amount of effort, but we all agreed it was a fun thing to do. And our mission in reaching all those different people. It was 1,000 people over those 2 days, and a third of those were minorities. And yes, we had people counting all those people and getting those demographics. Advice for working with other organizations. Detailed contracts are essential. Assign your photographers, assign people to be counters to get your public outreach numbers, and register with your local convention and visitors bureau if you want to get invited to other random festivals that might reach like Cinco de Mayo or something like that. The YMCA and the fair were in the spring, and the craziest thing happened after that. Like all these random organizations started contacting us. And these are a list of all the things that came off from that. We had helped the Jefferson County AgriLife program. We stayed helping each other. And in that last slide, that was our park ranger, helped us with a project that we had with the kids' classes in the summer. And so we come to objective number 3, which was giving these AV presentations. We had our goal of 4, but now you can see on the left, these are all the ones that we had scheduled for this year. And some people just have a knack for that. Our advice for presentations is to have several different topics ready so you can offer that to those organizations. Those banners that we had made, they add class to your presentation. Some members have the knack for that, and then ask for donations, because why not? They just will say no, that ain't nothing. So objective number 4 was giving an eco tour for a minority organization. So we contacted several different minority leadership organizations, but the Hispanic Society of Lamar came out one day for a Cyclist Tupelo swamp tour for one Sunday afternoon in April. It was a beautiful ride. It was a small group, but they were so enthusiastic. Advice when sponsoring a private event. Well, it was a disappointing turnout, and it wasn't financially reasonable because we had to pay $375 to rent the Ivory Bill. And no further interest has been shown from that group. So we kind of learned from that. Objective number 5 was to increase our social media presence. We already had a Facebook site, but we weren't doing a whole lot with it. And so one of our members made a YouTube channel for us and put some videos on there. And then we made an Instagram account and started trying to focus on that more and taught our members how to use the platforms. So advice when working with social media. You kind of need somebody appointed to kind of keep driving that. And then you've got some members that just aren't going to do that. They just go, Nancy, I'm not doing that. And neither am I going to wear an armadillo hat. I'm like, fine. Has far-reaching connections, and you need to define quality versus quantity. Like, we don't just want to put something out there just to put something out there. Our numbers. The original budget that we asked for was $1,800, but you see the fair sucked a whole bunch of that out with these banners that we made and all that. So then in May, we got some more money, and the Ivory Bill rental was $375. Our kids' classes supplies was $155. So we have $284 yet left, and I guess it's a good thing it's kind of the end of the year. Our volunteer numbers. This is a breakdown of all of our the number of volunteers for each event and the number of hours that we spent on each of those events. So I guess the red numbers at the bottom would be total of 27 members participated, and it was a total of 563 hours that we put in this year. Just on those new things. We were still doing the other ones too, the original traditional ones. Our public outreach data was youth classes prior to December 2021 that were not with the Big Thicket Association. We had just 1, and this year we had 7. Our AV presentations had been 1, and this year we had 7. Our social media platforms, we had 1, and now we have 3. Our non-ecocentric events, we had 0, and this year we had 3. But I'm just going to say 2 of those events were 2 days, so I think it should be 5. But anyway, nobody agreed with me on that. Our social media numbers, we had Facebook began January 2011, and now we're reaching 12,000 some odd people. And then in January 2022, we began our Instagram account. We are reaching 603 people, and those numbers are of September. Then in June 2022, we got our YouTube account. We have total views of 83 on that. Interesting percentages about men and women that do Facebooks and these social media things. So our observations are the power of synergy, setting goals and diverse skill sets, active initiation versus passive response, and continued partnership with other conservation organizations. That was the smiley face part. And then we had some frowny face learning things, like we had a low turnout from the Hispanic Society. We have not seen an increase in folks wanting to join TMN, even though we're getting out there with it. Ninth graders are too cool for nature classes, and we needed more money than originally budgeted. So this is a recap of what we learned. And the other stuff we learned was to develop a method for counting so many huge numbers of people at the fair. And we also realized that this year we taught 1,000 students with the Big Thicket Association. It didn't cost us. But when we initiated the kids' classes, it was $155 that we wound up putting out for that. So our outcome, people were reached. Our members stepped up for the new challenges, and we still continued participating in the traditional events. So can I get a big amen for that? This is a list of 2022 State Fair participants. All those folks helped us, and this is our contact information. So I guess I'm out of time, and I do escape, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then you can press stop sharing. Or you can leave that up, actually, Nancy. Just leave that up. We've got a few minutes for questions.
Okay. Let's see this. The WebEx
There's a
thing
few
disappeared.
questions that have come in the chat, Nancy. And for the rest of the Sabine-Neches folks that are on the call, let me turn my video on. One of the questions that I had, you mentioned 27 members were engaged in this program. What is the total number of chapter members in Sabine-Neches? What percentage is that out of your entire chapter membership?
35-ish, maybe? Do y'all know, Sharon or Debbie?
Yes, Sharon has answered 30 to 35 active members. So that was about 77% involvement in the new outreach projects.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Another question that has come in from Rachel. She says, you describe how targeting more diverse audiences caused you all to call upon the diversity of your Master Naturalist talent. Please speak to how that impacted your existing chapter membership. Do you have indications of how this outreach will impact your future applications to be trained and become Master Naturalists? And have you designated space for newbies, for new trainees within this new targeted audience? And then what do the participating Master Naturalists perceive as opportunities for its futures resulting from this project? That's 3 questions in one.
So I'll start with the first question. I think Nancy in her presentation spoke, that was one of the disappointments, was that we have not at this time seen an increase in our membership that we could directly relate to the diversity in the audiences. However, we will continue getting the word out, and one of her points was keep asking till you get a yes. So we have a university, Lamar University nearby, with organizations that are willing to hear from us. We have other opportunities. We've reached out to the Better Business Bureau for some suggestions there as to how to approach some of the organizations in the community. So we'll keep pushing for that. Now, as to whether or not we have a position on our board. We do have a position for, currently we have a new position for a new trainee on our board, but on our public outreach committee, anyone can join our public outreach committee. And in fact, it's a perfect opportunity for our initial trainees to join in. So everyone would be welcome on that committee.
Excellent. Looks like we're out of time for questions, and there's a few more in chat. So Debbie and Nancy, all are welcome.
Yeah. I got just one more minute.
Okay.
Richard, so one of our judges did ask a question in the chat. You said you have to get used to being, he said, you have to get used to being told no. Can you tell us how many no's did you get when offering classes, activities, and tours? And what lessons did you learn through those no's?
Oh, I don't even have a record of all of those. A lot of the contact, nowadays is email. And I guess people get a lot of emails. The YMCA, I even did telephone, kept calling the telephone and leaving messages and going in person and just showing up and being a major pest. In a sense, until I heard a no. And I don't know, I guess it's odd for organizations for you to contact them and say, we want to give you something for free. And they think there's a catch to that, And I had to say, it's not for that. We just want to reach out to minority organizations and let them see how great nature is. Like, that's our goal. So a lot of the kids, Boys and Girls Clubs, the Salvation Army, like I was contacting all of them through emails, and they just didn't respond back. And I don't know what that's about. So maybe they thought we were kidding
Okay.
them or something.
I hate to cut this conversation short,
no problem.
but we do need to stay on task and or on our schedule today and move to the next presentation. And who from the Lost Pines chapter was presenting next?
Alan Geisen here, will be presenting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. And
Hold
you
on,
see
Alan.
my presentation?
Yes, we do. And then you just press play.
Let me get it to for some reason it's not giving me I need the screen that gives me into the slideshow mode or the presentation mode.
If you go up to slideshow on that top ribbon,
There it is.
go
Sorry.
to the right. Yep.
Yeah, got it. Sorry.
It's okay.
Here we are. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present. Congratulations to Nancy and the first presentation. You touched so many people. Wonderful to see our master naturalists do that. It's so important. So the project that we're presenting is much more of a physical construction project, but there's a little more to it. It's a bird blind that we built, but it's not just going out and placing a bird blind. It's part of a very important activity going on in the state that some of you may be familiar with. It's the Bird City program, sponsored by Texas Parks and Wildlife and the Audubon Society, which works with cities to encourage natural area development in their cities, environmental responsibility and natural responsibilities. And so the city of Bastrop is currently certified as a bird city, and it's a 3-year certification. And this is the last year of the certification. There's requirements that go into that. And they're applying, of course, to continue in that role. It's a great thing for the city, great thing for nature, because there's a lot of projects I don't have time to go into here that come out of that. But part of that is the city has to do things to encourage bird watching and make that more available and to make it available for nature. So they came to us with, and we've been a part of that, by the way. Our members have been part of setting up the Bird City, and came to us with an opportunity. Said we need to. It's not advancing for me. What am I doing?
If you'll hover your mouse over the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay.
Do you see the
Uh-huh.
arrows that pop up?
And I don't see it, but it worked. Okay.
Okay.
So it's, but this project basically was led in terms of the physical thing 100% by our Lost Pines chapter. But we worked with multiple partners, Audubon Society, Parks and Wildlife, City of Bastrop, Texas Historical Society. The project was funded through a grant from the U.S. Forest Service, and that money was managed and transferred through Parks and Wildlife. We had a maximum budget of $1,900, and it was implemented by a issued purchase order to our chapter. And then our board assigned a project manager, happened to be me, to lead the project. The only thing I want to mention on this has a lot of words on this slide, but I just want to mention that part of the requirement was to create bird watching amenities in the public park, part of the agreement of Bastrop Bird City. So there's definitely a clear need to do things like this. The other thing, I don't want to go in a lot of words here, but down the lower part where I have it highlighted, additionally, this is the purchase order requirement from the state, from Parks and Wildlife. So additionally, the chapter volunteers will be able to train and advise volunteers throughout the statewide Texas TMN network who can then replicate the project in their community. So this was one of the requirements from Parks and Wildlife. So the first thing we did was form a project team of the parties involved in it. We worked together by doing site visits and by using Zoom meetings to coordinate the design and the planning and implementation. Everybody played a great role on this. Essentially, the way it worked is the chapter had to pay ourselves for all the materials, and then submit for reimbursement to Parks and Wildlife. The maximum budget was $1,900. We had more than 20 volunteers involved, and then a lot of others in administrative work, more than 230 volunteer hours, and we applied for $1,893 in reimbursement. So we spent all but $7, which was more chance than planning. But we got some extra things that weren't really expected. So the first thing we had to do was come up with a design. In that prior slide, I talked about how we had to utilize local materials at lower cost. We're in an area with lots of eastern red cedar. We found this is not our blind. This is a photo that we found online that seemed to fit what we might want to do here. I don't even know where this is. That looks like a mesquite tree. Some of you may know about it, but it utilizes cedar and seems to fit in very nice with the natural environment. So we use this as our starting point in the design. First thing we had to do was select a site. It's in a city park located about right on the Colorado River. So it's a very nice wildlife area. This is the site we picked after it had been cleared. If I walk straight ahead here, it's about 200 feet to the river. So it's a great area to track birds. Another shot of that. The basic design was 8-foot sections laid out like that with three benches. The primary materials were, and this was one of the requirements, that we did locally sourced salvage material. We found some salvaged cedar planks cut up by a local guy with a little sawmill, and then we donated salvaged cedar posts from some of our members' land. We had to make some custom steel bench posts. In that photo I showed you that we were using, those benches were freestanding. That obviously wouldn't work because this area can flood, and also because in a park, loose benches would disappear, get moved. So we elected to put those in the ground, as you'll see later. And then the other large amount of material was a decomposed granite, basically for the base around the area. In the original plan, we had no plan for a water feature, but you're going to see that we built a guzzler. You'll be interested in hearing, I think, about what that is. These are some of the posts from our members. So we got started on the project. We have a very active work team called the Bridge Maniacs that we do lots of work for our 4 parks in the area, clearing trails and building things there, including bridges. So we're pretty well equipped with that team to get to work on this. So we built the project. I assigned 3 project leads, one to put in the layout and put in the posts, to put in cement, the other to manage the placement of planks, and then someone to manage the placement of the benches. And you can see the steel posts going into the ground at proper ADA height. Then we did something extra. Kelly Simone, our TPW advisor, said that, the problem with blinds like this is as people walk up to it, they can scare the birds. If there's birds frequenting the thing, even though it's 22 feet wide, the birds can kind of see people walking up and it scares them off. So could you put an extension on each end? And you can see what we did. And we did this with some of these extra salvaged trunks, smaller trunks of cedar trees. We added a 6-foot extension on each side, which I think was a wonderful addition to this design, very functional, and you'll see in some other ways, but it's well screened. So as people walk up, they don't immediately interfere with the birds that would be on the opposite side of this. There's our team we built this primarily on July 6th, and then we finished the water feature on August 8th. That's a part of our team. Some of them had left by this time, about noon, worked till 2 o'clock. It's another view of it. And then we had to see if there were any birds coming. There were not at that point in time. But we had money left in the budget. And so actually was suggested, I think, by Parks and Wildlife, should we put a water guzzler in? I've never heard of a water guzzler, had never heard of one then, but it's essentially a system that has a large water reservoir, in our case, 55-gallon drum, with a corrugated steel roof and a gutter system to collect rainwater to keep the drum full, hopefully, if we get rain. Been a problem around here. Commercial ones cost about $800. We built our own at a cost of $332. Did the pre-assemblies ahead of time, so it was basically a kit we could install and then met on another day. And here's the guzzler installed. You can see the gutter system, the drainage here, the roof, and there's a tubing that runs underground. You'll see how that works to a water feature that has some motion. It keeps it full and has motion in the water, which, if you know birding, it's very important to birds to have some motion. Now, that's not the prettiest thing, so we said, where do we put it? We put it behind the screen, and as you can see, it's really not obtrusive in terms of appearance. And we're very strongly considering planting flowering vines on these extensions out here, which we think would be a nice future addition. This is a short video. There's no sound, but you'll see how the guzzler works. Now, this drip is faster than you would. This is the first day we did this. This drip would be much faster. That would empty that guzzler in about a week, but one drip about every 10 seconds is a good way to go. And it gives movement to the water and keeps the shallow dish full for birds. So it worked out pretty nicely. So the city of Bastrop was a big help to us. They drilled the 15 large post holes, which was, as I say, a big help. They helped clear the site, and they spread the granite. So it was a project that took a significant amount of work, but went smoothly. This is what it cost. The blind was $1,036. The guzzler $332. The granite, pretty pricey at $526. $1,893 for the total. That's just a list of the detail I won't go into. But there are obviously ongoing opportunities with this project. We need to do more bird attractants. We're working with Audubon and other partners to do some more things, including plantings and structures to attract birds more. Educational programs can be conducted around the Bird Blind Project. And of course, we hope we can be involved in assisting other chapters. The question, one of your questions was challenges and pitfalls. I've got to say the project went extremely smoothly. You just have to be aware, obviously, you know this. All the chapters know this. If someone leads a project, they have to be prepared to spend a significant amount of time, more than you might imagine, to coordinate even what seems like a small project like this. But it went great. Everybody on the team contributed wonderfully. The city of Bastrop was great. And I do have to mention, we did have to get Texas Historical Commission approval of the before we could actually dig into the earth there for antiquities codes, which we did. We've just received rave reviews from all the parties involved, and we know this is going to be it's been a big help in fulfilling the Bird City requirements, and we're going to get a little credit for it. This is a sign that's being currently produced by Parks and Wildlife, not covered under our budget, but they're paying for this. This will fix to one of the planks in the blind and gives credit to the partners that were all involved in this. And so that will be the last thing we install on the blind project. As we say, we'd be happy to advise and help any other chapters interested in this. The wildlife viewing may not just be birds. Some of your other places or locations that have other kinds of wildlife, but there's a almost infinite number of designs. And if we can be helpful in that, Parks and Wildlife occasionally does have money available in budget for grants. So I encourage you to talk to your local advisors if you want to do that. For this is contact information. If you need to reach me, there's my email address, my telephone number, and I put on here the website information. You can just find it. Just enter Texas Bird City, and you'll find that it's a great program. Really goes to a great length to improve habitats in these cities and make them much more welcoming to wildlife and to people. So I do have one other member on here, Louise Ridlon. She's available for questions. She was very involved in the creation of the Bird City certification and is a real advocate for birds and an expert on birds. So we'd entertain any questions you might have.
And Luis is doing a fantastic job answering a lot of the questions that have come in chat already. Luis, do you want to recap some of the questions that have come in so far?
Sure, and I'll add a few things too. Part of the Bird City application requires a coalition of different organizations to be set up. And so our Lost Pines Master Naturalists were part of the coalition from the beginning in doing the application and the implementation of the Bird City project. And we've worked in conjunction with the local Audubon chapter and the Master Gardeners and setting up demonstration gardens and bird feeders and sites that improve bird habitat as part of the mission of Bird City. And Bob Bryant Park has kind of been a center for that. The local Audubon chapter put in a purple martin nest array this year, which was populated by 20-some pairs and fledged quite a few young ones. And then the Master Gardeners are setting up a native garden setting. And that is our next step for the bird blind, is to plant native plants. We are not going to put up feeders because in a public park that would not be a good good idea, good use of our energy. But planting natives will give us a demonstration site and also attract more birds and other wildlife.
Thank you. And that kind of answered some of the other questions that had come in as well. One of the questions that I had added in the chat was about interpretive signs. I know that some of the requirements for Bird City, Texas includes eBird and iNaturalist monitoring programs. Can you guys talk about the outreach that that you have planned for this beyond just the community science variable?
One of the things we've already done as part of our Bird City program is we have a monthly big sit and a monthly little hike in different parks and bird areas. And we had one of our big sits here at the Bird Blind and have another one planned for later in the year. So we invite the public. This is on Facebook, on the city Facebook page, as well as the Bird City Facebook page and the Master Naturalist. So we invite people in, and I think we had 24 people show up for the bird sit. The birds didn't show up, but the people did. We could explain the project. And an interpretive sign is in our future projects, yes, to show some of the native species and give more information about Bird City and about the bird habitat and the importance of it.
That's great. And Carla had a question. Michelle, chime in if you see some too. Carla had a question about the maintenance of the guzzler. What is the future maintenance on the guzzler and then on the entire bird blind, and who's responsible for that?
The city is helping us when we don't get rain to fill the guzzler. They'll pour some water, add some water to the surface there and let it fill. But when there is sufficient rainfall, then it will take care of itself. So that it is a rain collection system. As far as the maintenance of the blind itself, we have frequent check-ins by members of the team who just have looked at. So far, we've had no issues with vandalism or anything, but it'll be an ongoing project. And being in the park where there are other Bird City activities, it's easy to keep monitored. It's in a pretty obvious easily accessible place.
Excellent. Michelle, do you see any other questions? With the 1 minute we have left. I think we've answered most everything here.
I think so.
Um,
Do the judges have any other questions for this group? I'm gonna hand over presentation rights to the next group so they can start getting ready.
okay.
But
Louis
we
and
can
Alan,
answer
thank
the
you
final
guys so
question.
much for presenting. We appreciate y'all's time, and good luck with the future of your project. Our next presentation is going to come from the Heartwood Chapter, and I'll let them get started now. Carolyn, it should be yours.
Okay, let me get, here we go. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So our project this past year was our Junior Master Naturalist program that we started. We had lots of wonderful help with that. One of the first things that we decided early on was actually based on this quote, in the end we will conserve only what we love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. And we thought that was a very good way for us to kind of define what we were going for. You know, it's so important that that children who would be more inclined to sit behind their computers or with their games, to get them out into nature, so that they learn to love. For our history, we started very early on thinking, well, how have other people done this, and can we stand on the shoulders of giants? So during the 2020 and 2021 state meetings, Adrienne Paquette, who is one of the, and Gail McConnell, who are the coordinators for our Junior Master Naturalist program, hosted a roundtable at the state meeting, and we learned a lot from these chapters that have already put together a program. Blackland Prairie, Brazos Valley, Elm Fork, Goodwater, Guadalupe, North Texas, and South Texas all gave us wonderful information. We decided that for our program, we would host once a month during the school year on a Saturday morning at different nature centers with volunteer opportunities after the presentations. Our program leaders were Adrienne Paquette and Gail McConnell. And what we'd like to do is share our program. We have all of our documents on a Google Drive, and this link, Michelle, if you could share it in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. And then there's a QR code if you are tech savvy and want to get to our documents that way. There it is. And what I'd like to do now is actually get to, our program curriculum includes the introduction and orientation, entomology, botany, geology, herpetology, aquatic science, mammals, birds, and then the graduation. Each class featured a presentation and our field research, worksheets, participation sticker, and a volunteer opportunity. Two of the classes, the birding class and the aquatic science classes, did not have an in-class presentation. There was no PowerPoint. They just went right out into the field and started looking at things. So let me go in, and I'm going to share a new screen. Let's see this.
We just see a gray screen right now, Carolyn.
Yeah, that is not I'm not a fan of that. Okay, let's stop sharing that. Let's go back over here and share again. Ah, there it is. Okay. Okay, so this is actually the drive that we're sharing with everyone. And as you can see, we have it broken down into the different classes that we held. The very first file that we have is for forms and business matters. We've included with some of the things that we've done, like the the application screenshot, this application is available on our website. And so you can look through to see what questions we've asked, so that way we can know, who's applying. Some of the forms are done so that, let me see if I can find one in particular, that you can change it to make it your own. And I think it's the brochure. I have the PDF file, but then I also have the file and publisher. So if you want to go in and change the chapter name, you can. We have the initial expenditures and the things that we purchased and how much it cost. We got a lot of that most of it, I think, from Amazon. And so this was our initial outlay for the different types of things that the kids were going to use. A lot of this stuff, like the glue sticks and the packs of pencils and things like that, are reusable, from one year to the next. The storage bins, dry erase markers. Let's go back. We actually there were children who were not going to be accompanied by their parents, and that was one of the things that we required, is that they be accompanied by a parent. They would designate someone else, like a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, to come with them. And so we have a consent form for that. We created name badges for each of the kids for them to wear. We had lanyards that we purchased, and along with the lanyards, we purchased little magnifying glasses. So their name badge and the magnifying glass would go on their lanyard, make them all official. We included, I've included in here signs, because in many of the cases, they were like, where am I going? Where am I supposed to be? And we would put the signs out, and then they would know exactly where to go to meet us when we had our meetings. So these are just some of the documents in the very first drive. Under introductory class, what we did with the very first class is we gave them notebooks. And this is an example of the notebook. And you can see we had created stickers for them to put on the front with their names. After each class, they were able to decorate their notebook. And this year, what we've done instead is we've printed out the workbook, and the workbook is included. We printed out the workbook. Get back into here. And this is the entire workbook. And we've had it spiral bound, so that way they can just put their name on the front, and then they can still decorate it with stickers if they like. But the entire workbook is here. For each of these, for each of the files that we've included, we have the pages from that workbook that apply. So for the introductory class, what we covered was leave no trace. And we actually gave them a little quiz at the beginning that kind of told us where they were, what their science background was, the things that they remember from previous classes. Nature safety, how to do nature journaling was in the intro class. And then this was the sticker for that event. Let's see, we had the sign-in sheet, and here's an example of the sign-in sheet. We printed it on cardstock so that way it would hold up through 9 different sessions. And the syllabus and the activities. The syllabus just describes where we were, but each of the files within this directory will tell you what we did during the class. Let me go to some of the interesting ones. Let me find mine. So one of the really nice things that we did was in in our aquatic science, we have this form. They actually went out and dipped during the aquatic class, and they identified, based on this file that was sent to me, they identified what the invertebrates were that they were looking at. And then they did the math to discover whether or not that was, and here are the invertebrates. They were able to go in and identify whether or not the pollution made the water poor, fair, good, or excellent. So they were actually doing some really good field research. And that's one of their favorite things that they did. For graduation, let's go back. For mammals, let me show you in mammals. Here's this wonderful armadillo, which you should appreciate Nancy wearing one on your head. So this is this wonderful armadillo who was one of the stickers. In order to make the stickers, I have a Cricut, and so I was able to run pages through my printer, and it would print them, and then I could put it on my Cricut and it would cut them out, and then we would give them out to the kids. And they thought that was pretty cool. So for graduation, we had graduation activities, and one of the neatest things that Adrienne found was that she could replicate that very initial class test and see how much the kids had learned. And so she did it on Kahoot. So the kids each of them had borrowed their parents' cell phone, and they were able to answer and see the answers pop up. And whoever won I can't remember what it was that Adrienne gave them, but there was one person who answered all the questions right and got a little prize, and that was very fun for them. They had a really good time with that. And then we had the graduation certificate that we created for them. And they just really enjoyed the process. This is a copy from one of the notebooks where David, who is a close friend of mine, and a neighbor, had written down how many hours he had spent in classes and how much time he had spent doing volunteering. I'm not quite sure what all of this means. I see he actually wrote what one of them was. But some of the things that they did was they learned how to use iNaturalist, and they went in and recorded things that they saw. They did some invasive species removal. And if you have questions about that, Gail can answer it in the chat. And let's see, the very last thing I wanted to show you is, let's go into this. And I have some pictures to share. So here we go. So this was during the introduction and orientation. We did just a little brief walk outside. This was during entomology. This is one of our members, David, and he did such a wonderful job introducing entomology. We've included the PowerPoints, and one of the things that he did was he had each of them have a roll of 100 pennies, and to kind of describe how many invertebrates there are, he had them pull out pennies until he said, okay, this represents how many invertebrates there are as a whole. And he was wonderful. He did a great job. Botany, this was herpetology. This is the aquatic science, where they're actually looking. We scheduled it in November, which next year it's going to be in April, I believe, because you can see the kids were cold, but it didn't deter them at all. Here's mammalogy. They even did a print of like wolf paw prints and things. This was ornithology before they headed out to to go bird watching. Here's the graduation. And here's a contact. So the class ran from September until June, one Saturday morning a month. And we do have, if I go back into, I saw someone asked about cost. One of the things that we have in the files is where we kind of broke down how much it was going to cost. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. It's the budget breakdown. And we had gotten a t-shirt for each of the kids. The magnifying glass was only $1. The graduation pin was $2. The printed materials, activity supplies, that's where we actually brought over and spent almost $300 to get all of the supplies. The graduation food. And so this is per person. So we decided after this that we'd go ahead and charge $50 for the class. And I think we went over because of the pandemic, we went over for the t-shirt because things were starting to cost a lot more than what you would anticipate. So that was not fun. But it really wasn't a lot of monetary outlay. Here we go. Do I have any other questions that I can answer from these screens?
There are lots of questions in the chat regarding the details of the training. How many times a month did they meet? How often? Did you have a hard time having people complete all 9 months?
And Gail's doing a great job answering a lot of those questions in the chat as well.
Good. I'm so glad Gail's on to answer the good questions, because Gail was the coordinator this is our first year, and so this is we're just starting our second year, and so we did have we met once a month on a Saturday morning from like 9 to noon. And 9 to about 11:30 was the presentation or the field research. And then after that, we would go out wherever we were and do whatever the project was, the volunteer project that we had designated for that area. Sometimes it was catching insects and identifying them, teaching them iNaturalist, doing a trash sweep of wherever we were. In one instance, there was, when we were teaching botany, we did where they would measure a tree by looking at a ruler, and then when the ruler covered the entire tree, you turn the ruler sideways, and they would walk away from the tree till the end of the ruler, and then you would measure that, and it would give you how high the tree was. So that's included in the botany part. They thought that was like magic. They thought, this is magic you're doing. It's not just math, it's a little magic involved. And so the kids really had fun running from tree to tree. Let's measure this one. So that was really fun. Let's see, every one Saturday a month. We started in September and ended in June. I think one of the interesting things is that we had a couple of the kids were like on swim team, and so for part of the summer they would come early, they'd get the presentation, and then they'd have to leave, so being overbooked or double booked, for some of the kids was tough. But yeah, all the kids that you saw, I think there's only one who didn't complete all of the classes. So let's find
Carolyn, there was a question, and Gail's answered the question in the chat, but maybe you can expand upon it a little bit. You talked about the three main members, or three members that were kind of the project leads for this project. Can you talk about the larger chapter involvement, and then what that looks like as a ratio of the total chapter membership for Heartwood?
Well, our membership now is up to, at this time, last year we were about 130 people. So each of these classes was taught by a different person. So for instance, botany was taught by by Abby, and entomology was taught by David, and mammals was taught by Adrian. The full range of how many people were involved, it was very small. It didn't take a lot of people to run the program. It was Gail coordinating, so she set up where they were going to, what places they were going to go. And then Adrian, because she is an educator with Texas Wildlife Association, she had a plethora of things that she could pull from. And if we couldn't find someone who was available, she would just step in and say, I've got all this stuff that we can do. So we had approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 people besides Adrian who taught classes, and some of the people who were in charge of the nature centers that we visited would step in and do classes also. So that was very exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carolyn. And there's some more questions that are coming in chat. It looks like Gail's answering some of those, but I see that we need to transition to our next and final chapter with our presentation. Michelle, while you're managing that switchover, our last chapter presentation is going to come from the North Texas chapter as they are Thank you again, Carolyn. I appreciate that. As they are going to talk about their Texas Buckeye Trail project. So we've got a presenter getting her presentation ready, and then we will have some folks answering questions in chat.
Wonderful. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to say all of these presentations and projects are amazing, and my co-presenters and I today have been texting back and forth like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So congratulations to all of you. It's really an honor to be presenting side by side with everyone. And also thank you for everyone here today for sharing your very precious time to listen to our story about our class project and how we're working in North Texas to try to increase diversity and inclusion in our local nature community. So again, we're the North Texas chapter. My name is Rebecca Poston, class of 22. I'm joined by Shelby Smith here, also class of 22, as well as Christy Kerr-Leonard, who is our fearless leader in a class of 2014. Project goal and mission. Okay, so the goal of our project was to provide better access to the Great Trinity Forest, which is the largest urban bottomwood hardwood forest in America. It contains the Texas Buckeye Trail, a few small lakes, other trails, and of course the Great Trinity River. And the mission of our project was to provide this access not just for those in the Dallas region, but in particular for the local neighborhood. Okay, so in terms of the trail location, it's pulling up there. Okay, so the trail itself is in South Dallas, and it backs up to a largely Black and brown community called the Bonton Ideal Neighborhood. Accessing it requires going over a very high levee, which we will see plays a very important role in our story today. Okay, so the Texas Buckeye, you see that beautiful picture there. Our project started because of Christy Kerr-Leonard. She loved the forest and the Buckeyes, and she saw that the Texas Buckeye Trail provided the easiest access to the most beautiful bottomland woods anywhere. And during March, the Buckeyes provide a wonderland of beautiful and delicate blossoms. They're very, very special. Unfortunately, the trail itself had almost disappeared because of an overgrowth of privet and disuse. So she worked alongside the Trinity Coalition as it obtained a beautification agreement with Dallas Parks and Rec to liberate the Buckeye trees from the privet and eliminate 911 calls of lost hikers. Hey, Christy, I think we're off of the Christy. I'm looking at the slides here. Okay, so Christy's controlling the slides. Christy, can you go back to, yeah, great, thank you. Perfect. So, anyway, so double unfortunate was that most of the people who were actually hiking the trail were from other parts of the city that had been driving in like 20 or 30 minutes. Next slide. Next slide, Christy. So for 2 years, Christy worked with numerous other organizations, partners, and collaborators, basically anyone else who would listen. And there was a tremendous amount of red tape with DPAR, and it was very hard to engage with the Bonton Neighborhood Association as they are not well organized. Moving on to the next slide. Awesome. And so, to the great fortune of the class of 22, she applied to our North Texas chapter to sponsor a community outreach class project. And it was approved, and 16 very new, very excited members took up the challenge, and we became what we call the Texas 22 Buckeye Crew. And our project was designed to be composed of a couple of components: trail restoration, writing scripts for trail hikes, holding a community outreach event to take people in the neighborhood over the levee and into the forest and into the Buckeye Trail. Next slide. So we only had 2 months before the summer heat, so we had a hustle. And our group divided into teams according to our unique interests. So I'm Rebecca, I joined the outreach team, and Shelby, for example, joined the youth team. And we all continued to jump into the trail and to try to clear out the privet in order to get it safe, pretty, and ready for showtime. So what you're seeing on this slide right here are some historical pictures. So what we did to try to inform our work, we did some networking, and we found others who had attempted similar projects in the past 20 years, which is well before the Master Naturalists got involved. And these other organizations had also done trail maintenance and held community events. Unfortunately, what we learned from having many conversations with many of the participants is that those projects were largely ones and dones, and very few people actually came to any of their events. So it was pretty obvious to us that we couldn't just barrel in, hold a party, and expect people to show up. So we began to dig a little bit deeper, in particular deeper into the history of the neighborhood. So next slide. So what we see here is a map of Dallas. And as we researched, we learned that this neighborhood was one of the original red-lined neighborhoods for African Americans set up in the 1920s. And for many reasons, it was a difficult area to live in because, moving on to the next slide, I think many of you will appreciate this. It was sitting right there in the floodplain of the Great Trinity River. Next slide. And in fact, the Trinity River overflowed and created flooding year after year after year until around 1991, when a levee was finally built. And this picture is circa around 1990. The article is from the New York Times, so it was nationally recognized. Next slide. So finally, a levee was built. And while the levee was life-saving for the community and the neighborhood, it also created a physical as well as a mental barrier. The forest was out of sight, it was out of mind. And this picture shows what you see when you walk up to the levee. I'd like to point out here just a few other quick important pieces of history that we learned in our research, and I'll boil it down to a couple of points. First of all, we learned about the violence and the brutality that had occurred to the African Americans from the community in the Trinity Forest. And the local community was really rightly wary of entering the woods. We also learned about the historic distrust that the neighborhood held of outsiders, particularly, as they told us, the white people from North Dallas, who had historically acted the role of saviors and were seen as taking credit for anything good in the neighborhood. And again, we learned from them that the people in the neighborhood very much remember and they think about this savior mentality. Slide. To make a very long story short, despite of everything that we learned, we decided we'd still move forward, but we knew we needed to really dig deeper to understand the neighborhood better. And after many phone calls and introductions, we finally uncovered the true community influencers. So these are Ms. Jackie Mixon and her daughter, Ms. Cherie Mixon, who run a small community center called T.R. Hoover Community Development Center. Now, they had been working in the community for 25 years and truly exemplified the fact that sometimes the true community leaders don't always have the fanciest titles or the biggest buildings. Next slide. And in fact, I love this article. Ms. Jackie Mixon was indeed one of the original community leaders, and was instrumental in forming their neighborhood association. And she also found many creative ways to bring the community together to fight for their neighborhood. And this article is about her work creating prayer warriors. Next slide. As the spring continued to progress, we were being told by many sources that we needed to start with the kids first if we wanted to build trust within the community. So we started trying to work with the Mixons, and although it took a couple of tries to get their interest and attention, when we finally started talking about, hey, we can serve your kids, they responded with huge interest. And then we were able to work with them to tailor the event to meet the community's interests and needs. And we were able to plant the seeds of our future relationship. 19. Next slide, please. Okay, for the event itself, Ms. Cherie and Ms. Jackie Mixon agreed to bring their after-school students to our Saturday event, and that's when we discovered the biggest hurdle, transportation. It's just a mile between them and the trail, but we needed to find transportation for them. So fortunately, we found this lovely gentleman, Mr. Curtis Corbin. He serves the South Dallas community through his nonprofit. He was fabulous, and working with him was also consistent with our desire to work with locally owned businesses whenever possible. And for a small fee, he agreed to transport everyone to our event. Next slide. And in the end, our spring nature event was a huge success. So we had nature chunks, nature activities and crafts, tours of the trail, and per the community specific request, we had barbecue. And we received wonderful feedback from the community. Everyone, all of our volunteers, both in the event and the work leading up to it, we had a place for everyone to use their unique skills and interests, whether it was someone like me who likes doing historical research, or someone like Shelby doing youth programming, also providing logistics, pulling privet, or showing off some mad grill master skills, as you can see Clint here in the bottom right-hand picture. Next slide. Overall, we were very happy with the attendance at this first event, and these numbers here are only the people who live in the Bonton Ideal neighborhood. So we truly blew out of the water all of the prior events that had come before. Okay, next slide. Okay, so our big picture goal was to ensure that this event wasn't just another one and done. So during all this planning, Shelby Smith had been researching children's nature programs, knowing that we'd have to step up and serve their kids for the summer. Next slide. On June 6th, the first of several hands-on small group instruction began there at TR Hoover. And we had 3 to 6 Master Naturalist volunteers at each session give their time instructing and guiding many hours of nature experiences for the kids. Next slide. We located a one-time donor, and with that, we paid for transportation for the 5 field trips. Next slide. And out of all of the incredible places that we went, as you see here in the list, the kids' favorite was actually their neighborhood Buckeye Trail. Next slide. In the end, the community and the Mixons requested more events and walks on the trail, just as we'd hoped. And in fact, our next event is this Saturday on the trail in partnership with TR Hoover Community Development Center. The next slide shows top 10 lessons learned, but I think we're running short on time. So I'm going to skip that for now. Next slide, trail. This talks about our next steps. We'll keep on working the trail. We're going to work with more summer programs per their request. We're going to have more community events, and they've requested adult programming. Next slide. We have some of our numbers here at a high level. The costs, both from the chapter for the project as well as our donor grant for the transportation for the summer field trips. We had over 1,000 recorded volunteer hours. Visibility for the chapter, next slide. Basically, our focus was on not publicizing this event very broadly. We wanted to focus on the community so that they would be comfortable and that they would take ownership of the event. And based on what you're about to see, we have a quick video for you. The Master Naturalists are developing a strong and positive reputation in the community, and our humble hope is to continue to develop these relationships. Okay, so these are the Mixons, and they were excited to share some of their thoughts with y'all directly today. Wait, I don't have volume.
When you share, Christy, you'll need to unshare and then reshare with that selection on the WebEx selected to share the computer audio.
Okay, I don't know how to do that, Mary Pearl. If you can walk me through that again, I'm unshared, and then what do I do next?
When you press share and you get the pop-up that asks you which screen you want to share, there's a bar at the top that says share computer audio, and you want to check that checkbox.
Okay, I don't see that. Can you pull it up on your end and I stop sharing?
What do you want me to pull up?
I sent you an email with the YouTube link.
Yep.
And if you can't find it, I think I might be able to do it. I see where it says share computer audio.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let's see if I can do it. All right, so you are just seeing, so I need to put this into view slideshow, I think. Okay. All right, let's see if it works. Fingers crossed, everyone.
Hi, my name is Sheree
Working.
Mixon, the Executive Director of T.R. Hoover Community Development Corporation, and this is Miss Mixon. This is my mama. She's the founder and president of the board. And the biggest thing for me, I had a joy out of the trail. It was a little bit of a struggle, but it was the wonderful opportunity to get up and go down and be a part of such a festive event. I loved it on a Saturday morning. That was a wonderful thing to do.
And so when we went to the
Buckeye Commons.
the Buckeye Common on
Buckeye
that
Trail.
Buckeye Trail that
Yeah.
Saturday morning,
Yes, ma'am.
I was a little bit leery. I said, "Oh, here we go." But after being educated and actually doing it, I came from that knowing, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay for the children. I was a little leery for the kids. Y'all saw me pulling them back, and I just did not want that to happen. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, it was
But
a tough
everything-
climb, but
yeah.
we made it through it.
Everything was just wonderful. They was excited, and they want to do it again.
Yeah, I want to keep doing it.
Yes, keep doing it.
This summer at the T.R. Hoover Center, we had the fortunate opportunity to connect with Master Naturalists and provide a outdoor program here in the 75215. Our kids had a ball with all of the trips scheduled on Wednesdays and the education that they learned. They went back home speaking to their parents about different things. People said, I would have never thought my children would have been interested to go to a dump site.
Yes.
But when they got in there were so many other things to learn there that when they processed those things, they came back. There was a lot of smiles, and every trip that they've gone on was exciting, and everything that they processed, they learned, they shared. Since our development with the relationship with Master Naturalists, we've
Christy
had
and Rebecca, I'd hate to cut into your question and answer time.
the group is they've taken our
How
opinion,
much time, how much more
gathered our ideas,
longer do you have on the video?
working
of seconds.
towards
About
building out
20, 30 seconds.
programs and service to go alongside with the community to help ease them into the education and learning that's out here in our community to better understand and adapt and be a part of.
And another thing that I would like to see, programs for seniors. The same thing that the kids is doing, maybe we can have another program for the seniors.
I think they would be interested.
And I think
to
they
those
would enjoy
places.
that.
Yes. We love you, Master Naturalist. Hi, my name is Sheree.
All right,
Mixon.
let me pause that. Thank you, everyone. I know we ran a little long, but we wanted you to hear directly from these guys. If you have further questions after this, we'd be happy to speak to you. And again, it's a real honor to have had the chance to talk to you all today and to lead our project. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy and Rebecca. We've got some great questions kind of rolling in the chat, and with just a few more minutes before we'll have to end today's TMN Tuesday. There was a question from Carla. She asked, did you have requirements for the students to create and participate in a class project?
Christy, we can't hear you.
I'll answer that. No, we did not have any requirements. It was just that they were from the neighborhood. We did not invite anyone else.
Another question is, were there any surprises from this experience?
There were many surprises from the experience. Shelby, can you briefly summarize in seconds?
I think that probably having as many children as we did and the erratic attendance, because it was T.R. Hoover was actually providing a summer program and she was looking for programming, and these children were more or less a drop in a drop-in basis. So they would be 16 some days, and some days there would be 28, and we had to be ready regardless of what we had. And the other, I think that would be the main surprise.
For me, I just want to add the main surprise was the level and the depth of the mistrust from the neighborhood for all outsiders. We knew about it, but only by truly digging into the history and then using that to develop a deep relationship, do we really come to appreciate it and be able to come to the relationship with a little bit, I guess, more humility.
And I want to echo that and also say that there was one point that my 22 Buckeye crew wanted to stop, as did I. And that was mostly when we heard that historically they were told, the neighbors, if you go into the woods, you probably won't come out. And there is the ancestral fear of lynching, not necessarily in these woods, just, throughout the entire United States. And that was hard to process, hear, and figure out as Caucasians how to be sensitive and react. But the main thing that Rebecca and Shelby and our other members, not here, is listen, listen, listen.
Wonderful. Well, thank all three of y'all for joining us today and answering some great questions. And thank you to all four of our chapter projects as they presented today. We are closing in on the end of our TMN Tuesday presentation. I do want to say thank you once again, Michelle. I'm going to grab that presenter real fast and just share that closing slide for us today as all of our attendees joined. Sorry, I just grabbed it. All of our attendees today joined us for TMN Tuesday. Thank you to all of our panelists who spent their time putting these presentations together. And coming on today to help share their project stories. Again, just kind of closing out on TMN Tuesday, we've got two more for the 2022 year, one in November and our last one in December. And we will see everybody soon as we get ready for our annual meeting where we will announce the award winners for our chapter project fair. I do like in the chat earlier, somebody said that the winner for today's project fair is everybody, because we got to learn something new and hear from some really great projects. So thank you all for all of that, and we will see you at the annual meeting. Yay. Bye. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Michelle, you can stop the recording, and I'm going to grab chat to have